Spoiler warning for the Elden Ring. If you wish to join us for the discussion next time, we will be playing Tiny Tina's Wonderland. So you can go play that, and then you'll be ready for the next podcast. Or you can just go play Elden Ring first, and then come back and listen. Thank you. Hello, and thank you for tuning into the Joystick Frequency, a video game podcast that doubles as a video game book club where you are a member just by listening in. I'm your host today, Trent, and joining me are my two co-hosts, Walker.
Hello.
And Brady.
Hi.
So, last time we were here, we talked about Pokemon Legends Arceus. This time, we're going to be talking about FromSoft's newest Souls-like, Elden Ring. But first, I want to hear about your guys' months. What have you two been playing?
I've been playing Horizon Forbidden West, the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, a 2016 game set in the far future of 3040, where the remnants of humanity are spread out in small pockets across a version of the United States that has been decayed and is now inhabited by large, beautiful, and as of more recently, deadly robots. We follow Aloy, a young outcast from the Nora tribe, setting out into the world after attack on her sacred land of Nora. With only her spear, bow, and trusty focus, a device from ancient times that lets her scan the environment and take in more information about the world around her, to track down and stop the source of what's making the robots more aggressive, and perhaps discover what happened to the old ones almost a millennia ago. Horizon Forbidden West picks up shortly after where Zero Dawn leaves off, as a blight is now spreading across the land, killing plants and animals, and it's up to Aloy to head into the Forbidden West and stop this new threat. Forbidden West really takes everything that made Horizon Zero Dawn so good and improves upon it. Combat's been tightened with a more of a focus on melee combat and new combos, as well as new weapons and elemental types, and new robots, keeping everything feeling fresh the whole way through. The world and exploration has also been expanded, adding new ways to traverse and new area types to delve into. The characters and story have received major attention as well, as we meet characters both old and new, and threats we could not have possibly imagined back in Zero Dawn. I really enjoyed my time playing this game, and getting to play it alongside my partner, passing the controller back and forth, made the experience an absolute joy. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. I've also spent a lot of time playing this indie game you may not have heard of. I think it's pronounced Elden Ring? Something like that. I think we'll get to it later.
Alright, Brady, what about you? What have you been playing?
I've also been playing Horizon Forbidden West. Since Walker already talked about it, I will mention the other game I've been playing. I've been playing Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, a game released by Nintendo and Game Freak in 2018, so it's a little bit older. Pokemon Let's Go Eevee is a remaster, or a remake is, I suppose, technically more accurate, of Pokemon Yellow, where you would get Pikachu as a starter and then get the other starters, Charmander, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, throughout the game as part of the story. This version, you can also get Eevee as a starter, depending on which version of the game you bought. One major difference between Pokemon Let's Go and other Pokemon games is that you cannot battle wild Pokemon. Instead, you can only catch them using the Switch's motion controls, tilting your controller and throwing Pokeballs at wild Pokemon. Instead of battling them, you just throw the Pokeballs at them immediately, and you level up that way instead of grinding by defeating wild Pokemon. There are still trainer battles, but wild Pokemon are very different.
So the catching mechanic's kind of like how it is in Pokemon Go this time around, right?
Very similar, and there are some network features that connect Let's Go Eevee with Pokemon Go, that I think that was an intentional thing that they did. I did not use it because I haven't logged into my Pokemon Go account in forever, but it is a part of the game that you can experience if that is your thing. I mostly just enjoyed playing Pokemon Yellow on my TV, which I have dreamed about doing since I was a kid.
I think Pokemon Yellow was one of my favorites of the old gen, just simply because of the fact that Charmander was my favorite, obviously. But I also liked Bulbasaur, and so being able to get both of them was a really good trade-off, simply because he's the best water type, I believe, in the first gen. I went ahead and picked up Blastoise as well, and so I always built my team kind of like Red does in Silver and Gold.
So I got Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, so I didn't have Pikachu as my starter, I had Eevee. And fun fact about the Let's Go starters, you're not allowed to evolve them. So you're stuck with either an Eevee or a Pikachu. No Raichu, none of the other evolutions, which was not fun. I would have definitely evolved it into a Jolteon if I could have.
Oh, but you could have all the different type moves. You just had to learn them.
I just caught a different Pikachu, and then I evolved him.
I just took Eevee off my team and just made 6 others.
No, dude.
Yeah. Blastoise, Charizard, Venusaur, Pinsir, Rhydon, Dragonite.
That's a
stellar team.
I don't honestly remember what the other the other two on my team would have been, because I did take Raichu, and then I had the 3 starters. Probably would have thrown a Alakazam in there, I guess. Or maybe.
Do you have friends that you could trade it with to get an Alakazam?
Yeah.
That'd be me.
Must be nice.
If you want to trade, I've got the game still. I don't mind booting it back up.
No, I'm playing it just as a casual thing.
This is how we go down the Pokemon rabbit hole again, and then it ends up being last month's podcast again.
By the way, so many more shinies now. I have almost 2 boxes full.
Oh boy. I remember my first time playing the Pokemon Let's Go game, and I really enjoyed it back then. I have not started Horizon Forbidden West. I haven't even played Horizon Zero Dawn yet, so I will eventually be playing both of those.
We need to amend that.
Yeah, it's only because the PlayStation, I only have a certain amount of PlayStation games, so I don't even bother hooking it up most of the time. Xbox is better, but PlayStation has exclusives, so what are you going to do? So yeah, I've been playing pretty much nothing but Elden Ring.
Oh, it's pronounced Elden Ring. Okay, I'm sorry.
Wait, I thought it was Lord of the Ring.
I hate you both.
Were we not? Did I play a different game?
There was a lot of cool dogs in my game.
There's a lot of evil dogs in my game.
Y'all didn't even get to the Curse Rot. Oh, not the Curse Rot. The Scarlet Rot dogs.
Are those the T-Rex dogs? They're mean. I don't like the T-Rex dogs. I've
been playing nothing but Elden Ring pretty much. I have my main character that I've been streaming. None of us have beaten the game yet. I'm probably a solid 5 hours from it, depending on how long it takes me to beat certain bosses. The game is massive, so especially balancing between me only playing my main character on stream, having a full-time job, and hanging out with my friends whenever I can. I don't see how people have beaten this game if they have anything similar to what I do. I know that Walker and Brady, y'all are significantly behind me.
I have not even crossed the 50-hour mark yet, which I know is kind of a big deal.
Probably the halfway mark, I would say, depending on where you're at. And Brady, you beat Godric like 2 weekends ago, right?
I beat Godric a while ago. Something the viewers should know. I am very bad at Souls-like games. However bad you're thinking I am, I'm probably worse.
You didn't take the internet's advice and get good?
Wait, was that
That's what this
an
is...
option?
Yeah.
It was okay for me to get good? I thought I was supposed to stay
yeah.
bad. Wow.
Oh, no.
Also, I think the number one issue you have is you didn't pick it up for Xbox like me and Walker did. If Walker has any difficulties, he can just call me and I'll be like, alright, yeah, sure, I'll hop on and help you out with this boss. You're kind of stuck because you went PlayStation.
I did get the game for PlayStation because my PlayStation console runs better than my Xbox does. It's a little bit newer. And I've also replaced the hard drive with a solid-state drive, so it is faster anyway. So if I have to get a new game, I typically get it for the PlayStation.
So anyway, since we're going to be talking about Elden Ring and that's all I played, we're just going to go on and get started with it. Walker, tell us about what Elden Ring actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. Elden Ring is a third-person action RPG released this year, 2022, and is the latest game From Software, the developers behind games like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. In Elden Ring, you play as a lowly tarnished, an exile from the lands between, guided only by grace and a mysterious pink-haired woman with only one goal: gain the power of the Elden Ring to stand atop the world as the Elden Lord. The catch? The largest shards of the Elden Ring are wielded by demigods, some of the most dangerous foes throughout the land. Will you be able to best these threats, or will you be brought back to Ash? Or will you simply spend 50 hours making friends with all the neat dogs that inhabit the open world, the lands between, like I have? And there's a lot of very neat dogs. Some very big dogs, some very strangely shaped dogs, but they're all very good dogs.
I will stand by the fact that the dogs are one of the worst enemies in Soulsborne games, because they always find a way to kill you at least 3 or 4 times in your playthroughs. It doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter how many times you've beaten the game. You will die to a dog at some point, and it's going to piss you off.
Is that not true of every enemy? Every enemy will find a way to kill you 2 or 3 times throughout the playthrough?
Been my
That's
experience.
just me. That's been my experience.
Yeah, you gotta remember, Brady, this is you we're talking about, not us.
Also, the dogs have such a janky hitbox. They're smaller than everything else, so some of your attacks go over their heads.
Because you're not investing stat points into petting the dogs, which clearly you need to be doing.
Yeah, okay. This is not my first Soulsborne game. I've played Dark Souls 1 through 3, 100%ing 2 and 3, and I've played Sekiro, 100%ing that as well. I need to go back and 100% Dark Souls 1, and I will play Demon Souls at some point. I know that for both of you, though, this is y'all's first Souls-like, correct?
Correct. I have never played a Souls-like before.
I have played Souls-like games, I'm doing air quotes, but none of the actual Souls games. So I've played Jedi Fallen Order, which I've heard is Souls-like. It has a very similar like dodge roll mechanic and healing mechanic, but obviously it's very Star Wars themed, and I do not think nearly as hard as these kinds of games are.
I lied to you, viewers. I have played Jedi Fallen Order. I didn't realize that counted as Souls-like because it is just incredibly easier than Elden Ring is.
I also know, Walker, you've played a little bit of Hollow Knight as well, which is considered a Souls-like as well.
I have played a little bit of Hollow Knight. I did not get too far into it. I think I got past the first major boss and kind of fell off. But yes, I have played Hollow Knight.
Okay. So due to the fact that I've played the most Souls games, I think I'm going to start with either one of you, Brady or Walker, whichever one wants to start. Let's go ahead and get your general thoughts. What do you think of the game and so on?
I think that Elden Ring is one of the most beautiful, well-designed games I have ever played.
I sense a butt.
But I'm bad at it. That's it. I personally do not have the skills to properly experience this game. Everything I have seen of it leads me to believe that it is a masterpiece. The combat is very fluid. There are the typical Dark Souls like wind-ups and follow-throughs that lock you into certain combat maneuvers, but the actions you can take and the attacks that you can make flow together very well. The design of the world is gorgeous. The graphics remind me a little bit of the style of like late 2000s games. Better graphics, but the style matches what I would have expected to have played in my basement in 2007.
Weren't you like 12?
11. I would have been 11 in 2007. So like, I'm thinking Dragon Age Origins, very similar art style.
I'm actually going to piggyback right off of that because I really agree with you. The styles and layouts feel very late 2000s, especially there's specific points right after you exit, we'll get into it, the first major, I believe it's called the legacy dungeon of the game. You walk out and you can look around and you can see the different like main points scattered throughout the world, but it's very clear, they look beautiful, do not get me wrong, it is very clearly a skybox that's put there with the individual towers and castles off in the distance. Very, very cool. Amazing game. I've really enjoyed it so far. Certain things are kind of a sticking point with the aesthetics, like Brady mentioned, but it's not to a detriment to the game at all. I am playing this on the Xbox Series X, and it runs incredibly. I've really enjoyed the look, the feel, and the gameplay. This is my first Souls-like. I did get my ass handed to me quite frequently, but once I got over that first major point of realizing that death is part of the experience and part of the learning curve and process, and not taking it so hard whenever I lose, specifically going and spending all of my runes before I go into a major boss battle and drop them and lose them and become very upset. Once I do that, then I feel like I got a better grip on the game.
I did not progress that far into the story of the game because of my mechanical limitations. However, everything I have seen of the game, the lore is fantastic. The little bits and pieces that you're strung along with enticed me into the game's story. The story of Elden Ring is fascinating, and I wish I was good enough to see the rest of the story. I will have to watch Trent's playthrough on Twitch.
I've played Souls-likes, and I believe Sekiro has been my favorite, simply because I like the feudal Japan area. It was really an interesting part of history for me, so I went into that, as well as whenever they mixed the combat system, it was really good. So going back to a Dark Souls-like combat system and everything, and just seeing the improvement they've done on it, really like it allowed me to like immerse myself in it. I love the area. I've always loved the lore and everything, and I'll be talking about that here coming up pretty soon. I enjoy the general gameplay of a Dark Souls game where, like, you don't know what the full story is going in, and then you find a little monument here with a little tagline here, and then you find the mention of a name over this direction. You find a weapon and you read its description, and then it links both the place and the name. Finding the story through that way is a really unique thing that all the Souls games do. I was just ready to dive in and do another one as soon as Elden Ring came out, and that is one of my favorite things about these games. Sekiro is my favorite game that I've ever played. I'm going to have to see how Elden Ring ends to determine whether or not it has beaten Sekiro. It is on the cusp, so we will see how that is.
That's really exciting.
Yeah. I do want to ask, how many item descriptions have y'all actually been reading?
I think I've read maybe one or two throughout the entirety of it so far. I have not taken the time to read items.
I read a ton of item descriptions in the first 20-30 minutes of the game when I was trying to figure out how to use items, just in general, how to use them. Once I figured that out, I stopped reading item descriptions.
So I recommend any blue rarity or higher item you get, weapon-wise, probably. Like, don't worry about consumables or anything like that. Read the description, because you're going to get a little bit of the story out of it. And it's going to link a couple things for you, and it's just going to be fantastic. Everything I'm about to give you is what happens before you start the game. So we start with Queen Marika of Newman. She has the blessing of an outer god called the Greater Will. And she is brought to this land to rule over it. And Queen Marika is actually split, and there's a male half of her and a female half of her, Queen Marika being the female half, Radagon being the male half. So Queen Marika takes a human named Godfrey as her consort and sends him out to conquer the surrounding lands around Lindell, the capital city. And Queen Marika and Godfrey have their firstborn, Godwyn. And because of Queen Marika being an actual god, but Godfrey being a human, they create these demigods. So Godwyn being the firstborn, and then Mog and Morgoth, who are both disfigured. They have like some sort of like horns growing out of them and stuff, so they're like kind of cast away from the family, so they end up going to their own separate places. Radagon, Marika's male half, ends up fighting on the battlefield with Lady Renala of the Raya Lucaria Academy, and they end up falling in love and marrying, and they have 3 children named Radon, Rykard, and Ronnie. And most of the names I'm mentioning here, as you know if you've played the game, are bosses that you have to beat, or main storyline people. So basically what happens is Godfrey, he's hounded from the lands in between, and so Queen Marika needs a new husband, and she decides to take on Radagon, her male half, and they decide to rule as one. Doing so, they have 2 children named Millennia and Michaela, both of which, because they are born from one entity, are cursed upon birth. Millennia being cursed with Scarlet Rot, Michaela being cursed with eternal childhood. And so they rule for a while, but then eventually Ronnie, one of Radagon's and Renala's children, organizes the Night of Black Knives because she doesn't want to follow the Two Fingers anymore. The Two Fingers being the ruling kind of gods, I would guess. They're like aspects of the Greater Will, I'm pretty sure. She doesn't want to be under their rule anymore, so she organizes the Night of Black Knives, gets some assassins from Newman, and they steal from Malekith the Rune of Death and infuse it into their weapons so that they have the ability to kill gods. And on that night, they end up killing Godwyn, Queen Marika's firstborn. Upon Godwyn dying, Ronnie also dies, but Ronnie only kills her physical body while killing Godwyn's soul in order to... She gives herself a new form so that she may live after her body dies. That way she can separate from the Two Fingers. And so the Night of Black Knives causes Queen Marika to break the Elden Ring in despair over the loss of her child Godwyn, and the events afterwards are called the Shattering. Upon the breaking of the Elden Ring, it violates her relationship with the Greater Will, and so the Greater Will seals both Marika and Radagon in the Erd Tree, the giant tree that you see no matter where you are in Elden Ring pretty much, unless you're underground. And so they're sealed within the Elden Tree. And upon this, the Shattering causes the demigod children to all go to war with each other, trying to obtain the great runes from the Shattered Elden Ring to see who rules the land. One of the main ones you have there is Millennia fights Radon, who is the strongest of the demigods, and he is a great warrior that went and taught himself gravity magic just so he wouldn't kill his horse that he rides on. Because he is massive.
This is one of the fights that we actually see illustrated in one of the trailers, correct?
Yes. And this fight, Millennia, who has never lost a fight, and Radon, who is probably the greatest fighter, they go head to head, and it ends in a stalemate with Millennia unleashing the Scarlet Rot on Radon. That eventually drives him wild and insane, and he ends up roaming Caelid, which becomes destroyed because of the released Scarlet Rot. And it becomes the Scarlet Rot swamp and desert area. And so Radon is cursed now with roaming and devouring anyone he meets. Millennia is then put into a deep sleep where she awaits the return of Mikola. And she's taken by one of her soldiers to the Halig Tree. Mikola, because he was an eternal child, has cased himself in the roots of the Halig Tree. And during her sleep, Mog actually comes to try and make Mikola a full god instead of a demigod and become his consort, and carves Mikola out of the Halig Tree and takes him. However, it doesn't go like he wants, and Mikola ends up dying. Morgott ends up taking his mother's place in Lindell, returning back to his original homeland, and he rules over Lindell, the capital. And for all those people out there that haven't gotten too far into the game and are still listening, don't care about spoilers or anything, Margit is Morgott, so be ready for round 2. So Morgott returns to the Lindell capital and ends up ruling there. Rykard of Renala and Gratagon, he ends up going to Mount Gelmir, where he makes a pact with a great serpent and allows the serpent to eat him, great rune and all, in order to try and, over time, continuously eating people, champions, that his helper Tanith sends his way, and he just keeps on eating them, becoming stronger, them becoming his family, in quotes, whenever he devours them, to eventually reach the strength to be able to kill a god. However, the only sane one that probably didn't participate in any of the fights is Ronnie. Ronnie actually gained her new form after killing Godwyn, ends up killing the Two Fingers, and she just spends her time in the tower waiting for your Tarnished Champion to come and be her consort, pretty much. And then we have Melina, which it is unsure of her relation, but Melina is the one that leads you on your way as you go through the entire game, collecting the great runes to get enough power to overthrow the Erd Tree and the gods.
There's a lot of really cool stuff that happens in the lore, and a lot of it that, from my understanding, is it builds up. It sets the board for the world that we go in and explore. It illustrates all these bosses that we have to take down, which, if you don't go in knowing any lore or any background information, they're just another obstacle for you to conquer. But when you actually take the time to learn that Radon learned this magic to spare his poor little horse, which in comparison to him is tiny, it's very sad.
Also to control and lock the stars in orbit, so you know.
Well, that's this is for the horse. Let's be
Column A,
honest.
column B.
So you find all this information out throughout the game. So you're kind of writing the future of this land while also slowly piecing together through item descriptions and everything else I described beforehand.
Now, Trent, tell me, where does our Tarnished come in? Where does the Tarnished's ability to reincarnate after death come from? Are we just a normal person? How do we fit into the picture?
So technically, Godfrey was the first Tarnished. After Godfrey was hounded from the lands between, he became the first Tarnished. And I don't know if he has the same power as us to constantly be resurrected. I think he's the one that founded the Round Table.
Since Godfrey was the original Tarnished, America likes us because we're a Tarnished, because we are that of which Godfrey was. And being the god or godlike being that she is, she's given us the ability to reincarnate. That's why we're able to reincarnate at places like the Stakes of America. The Places of Grace, I believe, are... It is the greater will that creates those signs of grace and pushes us in the direction that it desires. So I believe the incarnations through the sites of grace might actually be from the greater will itself. I don't know for certain, but that was my understanding so far.
The game has 6 different endings, so...
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. The ending I'm going for is the Ronnie ending. That's why I was able to go into her a lot. So basically, for the Ronnie ending, you find her original body to get the death mark that she used to kill Godwin, to find the Two Fingers. You are sent to find the weapon that can kill the Two Fingers, and you actually follow her whenever she kills the Two Fingers, and then she finally goes away. I don't know the full extent of the ending yet, but I've done the entire quest line, and that'll be the one I end up picking. What ending are you going for, Walker? Do you know yet?
I'm not going to be 100% in this game. That's not going to be feasible for me. But ending-wise, I believe I'm also going to go for the Ranny ending, because that seems like it is the most all-encompassing, and it's also not the secret ending, but it is kind of a secret ending.
Yeah, it's one of the secret endings.
It feels like the most true ending that I could see there. Because I know there's the standard one where you just, like, ascend to the throne. There's a couple variations on that. There's one that has to do with the curse mark that you mentioned very briefly.
So basically, what you can do is, in order to obtain the Flame of the Giants, someone has to sacrifice themselves, pretty much. If you go a certain way, you can get the Flame of the Frenzy, which that is a way, another ending. If you get the Flame of the Frenzy, that is the worst ending you could possibly get. However, if you get the Flame of the Frenzy, then whenever you take the Fire of the Giants, you get burned yourself, but you still come back and you're still alive. So it's a way to stop someone from dying there. Instead, you just take the damage there. Melina sacrifices herself by taking the Flame of the Giants to burn the Erd Tree to give you access, if you go the standard ending. However, if you get to the Flame of the Frenzy, she first of all shows up, warns you, like, do not do this. This is a curse upon the land. We don't want this and everything. If you get it, she completely abandons you and says, the next time we meet, it will be for me to kill you. So you can do that. However, there's a way that, by doing the Millicent quest line and getting to Millennia, that you can get Miquella's Needle. And if you use Miquella's Needle on yourself after the Placidusax boss fight...
You're throwing a lot of words. I'm following, though.
He's the last dragon fight of the game, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, we know this. We've had this fight. Both of us have fought this dragon guy.
The one with the two heads?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I thought it was 4, but
it's a cakewalk.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's 3, but one of them's dead already, so...
Oh, that's what got me. Yeah.
I'm not lying. It is 3 heads, but one of them's already dead.
Oh, Jesus.
Sure.
So anyway, after that fight, you're able to use the Golden Needle on yourself, because originally the Golden Needle was used to help Millicent, who is inflicted with Scarlet Rot, and it gets rid of the Scarlet Rot for her, unless she takes it back out, which she does at the end of the quest line, ends up dying. After killing Melina, you can use it on Melina's Scarlet Rot bloom, and it'll become Miquella's Needle, which can cure even the Flames of Frenzy. And it'll make it to where the Flames of Frenzy die and go away. So there's a kind of paradox in it where you can technically get the good ending still afterwards. However, if you take the Flame of the Frenzy, Melina's still mad at you no matter what, and there's no interaction after you get rid of the Flame of Frenzy.
Gotcha.
After that with Melina, even though I feel like there should be.
So for all intents and purposes, she dies off at that point. Like, you don't see her anymore.
Yes, if you do the normal ending. If you do the Flame of the Frenzy ending, the last words are her saying, I am coming for you to deliver you destined death.
It's pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, I'm hoping they release a patch that... It doesn't have to make a 7th ending, but it needs to give, like... If you purposely go out of your way, take this long shot to try and save Melina, that they kind of, like, make her realize that so that she shows up again and isn't just, like, permanently gone after that point. I would really like that. So, after that lore dump I did, which I did the best that I could, and it was mostly for these two so that they could get a better idea of what they haven't done yet, especially Brady, because I know Brady's probably not going to be playing this very often after this. Walker, I know you have intent to finish it, yeah?
Yeah.
And me, I'm going to 100% it again because it's a FromSoft game, so yay, more playthroughs for me. I'm doing all 6 endings because, like I said, this game's up there with Sekiro. I did all 4 endings for Sekiro. I'm doing all 6 for this. So now let's go into, what kind of characters did we all make? I know you struggled in the beginning, Brady, and made a couple, you said, right? So let's go ahead and start with you.
So I typically, when I play video games, I go for a magic build. I am a mage through and through, so when I started Elden Ring, I played an astrologer. So I completed the tutorial and got about 3 or 4 hours, or more like 2 or 3 hours into the game as this astrologer, and was not doing well. I got killed all the time because I would throw out spells and then not kill things and then not be good in melee and just die. Was not having a good time. My second character I built as a vagabond. I figured the extra health would be useful. The polearm, the halberd, would give me more reach to get damage on people before they get close to me, and the shield would help block damage. I was right on all counts. Having a halberd was so much of a lifesaver. Plus, the halberd staggers people so much. Horse people, not a problem. I can just hit them and they stop attacking me until I kill them. Dogs, a little more of a challenge, but they also get staggered really easy by halberds. Halberds are the only reason I was able to get as far as I did.
Who told you to pick up the shield, though?
I was using the shield, and then you mentioned something, and then I stopped using the shield because I thought I was doing the wrong thing.
No. I told you to make sure you get 100% physical protection shield.
That's the basic shield you get as a vagabond, is 100% physical protection. I've replaced my halberd because I did eventually beat the tree sentinel. It took so long, but I beat him and took that halberd. I still have the basic shield that comes with the starter vagabond because it has 100% physical resistance, and it has a parry, which I've done once. Actually, once. I spent a long time fighting those just basic mobs. Not the zombies, the soldiers in Limgrave. Just working on my parrying timing. And then when I get into an actual fight, I forget all about it.
The lighter weight the shield that has parry on it, the better the parry is. So the unfortunate drawback of having the 100% physical protection is that's the heaviest shield with parry you can get. So that's the trade-off. You won't be able to parry much. There's a small window. You can still get some parries off of your perfect with your timing. But I feel like the physical protection is a lot better.
Yeah, the physical protection is a lot better, especially when...
At least in a casual playthrough.
In a casual playthrough against, especially the bosses that I fought. If I did not have a 100% physical protection shield, I would not have beaten them at all.
Brady, I gotta be honest with you, it sounds to me like you took the bitch way out and gave up on astrologer.
Yes, absolutely.
It didn't take the time to learn your spacing. Now, I completely get it. I have been running astrologer since the beginning because I am too much of a pansy to restart my character. There was a very large hump of just pain with being that squishy, and that pain has carried out through my entire 50 hours so far. I get one shot by just about everything, but I have started to adjust my strategy a little bit. I'm still getting one shot, that's fine, but I have learned to focus a lot bit more on spacing, and I have alternated from being a shield offhand staff main armament to staff and on my offhand and katana and my main armament.
Oh no, you're running the same build me and Liam or that I am.
Of course I'm running the Moonveil. The Moonveil's fucking broken. And it gives me magic slashes, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh, you already have Moonveil? I haven't gotten it yet on my character.
Oh, yeah. I grabbed Moonveil as soon as I heard that it was an int scaling sword. I was like, oh, please, yes. Before I got Moonveil, I found a really nice... It was a blue crystalline sword off in western Limgrave, in the little swampy area underneath the overhang of the mountain.
Oh, just the crystal sword. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was really good, and it carried me for a long time.
Did you find it right by the village of the Albernarks?
It was a little off from there, but it was pretty close to
across
there,
the bridge? Across the bridge?
Maybe. It was surrounded by a bunch of blue crystalline.
Oh, okay. Maybe not then.
I can send you a screenshot later. But yeah, it was a very cool sword, and it carried me up until I got Moonveil, which I know is pretty broken from what I've been hearing. But you know what? I don't care. I need the buffs because I am squishy. So I have been mainly using my magic as a opener and whenever I have the distance, I'll focus on magic, but I've been focusing mostly on dodging and swordplay since then, switching off to a shield whenever things get wild, but mostly astrologer with a focus on swordplay.
So I would recommend... How much health are you at right now, Walker?
Oh, I've got 16 stat points in vigor.
In health?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have, I think, 37 in intelligence. Can you tell where my stat spread lies?
That's fine. I recommend getting to 20 or 25 in health, and that'll actually stop you from being one-shot by most stuff up until probably level, like, post-Caelid, honestly. Unless, like, except for the certain, like, difficult areas of Caelid, so.
Trying to figure out my stat distribution has been a painful experience. Because I feel like I
been so
put
rough.
so many stats into the wrong areas. Like, I originally put a couple points into Arcane, and I really don't want to waste one of the larval tiers to respec 2 points.
You find a lot of larval tiers, and larval tiers are farmable from certain enemies as well, so.
I think I've got one currently, and I'm very scared to use it. I am the kind of player where if I am given something extremely powerful but consumable, I will not use that thing until the very, very end of the game if I absolutely have to, which is a shame.
Keep in mind they're blue rarity, and there's also purple and gold rarity, so.
Okay. But yeah, stat distribution has been an interesting learning curve in of itself. A lot of the times it's hard to know exactly, especially early on, exactly what the different stats do, what you're actually gaining. I still don't fully understand stuff like robustness, and I think there are a lot of like defensive stats that I am just not paying too much attention to, which, as squishy as I am, I probably should be paying a little bit more attention to.
Yeah, you can just do a quick wiki lookup to find out what each of those mean. I did in Dark Souls, like the Dark Souls 3, I looked up what each of those meant and everything. I can't tell you for the life of me what they are and everything. I believe robustness is bleed resistance, but I'm not positive.
Gotcha.
So my build, I will say I used Walker's build whenever I started. With my second character, with my pal Liam that I've been playing with, because he's going a strength faith user, so I'm like, alright, well, I'll be a dex int user. And that way we cover both bases and everything. So I'm using sorceries, he's using all these incantations, and I have to say, incantations got it good. I can't wait to run my faith build just for simply the various different spells you can use. Like, the spells are fun and everything, but everything's just blue. Everything's blue. Late game, you can get ice on them. But then I look over at my friend, and I see him doing lightning. I see him doing black fire. I see him doing regular fire. I see him doing healing. I see him doing buffs. I see him doing red lightning, and I'm just like, man, this is some bullshit. So that's my second character. My primary character, I originally was Dex and started going a little bit of Faith so that I could try and use the Dragon Head spells.
Yeah.
However, I hit a wall where I just couldn't get past a bunch of enemies because my poise was just shit. And I realized all those levels I put into intelligence for a sword I didn't know, that I thought I would use, I didn't end up liking. I didn't have enough space to use the Faith spells in my combat unless I'm like playing a completely different way. So that's a bunch of wasted stat points. So I went and respec'd, and I went 60 in Dex, a lot of health, and then a lot more endurance. So now I'm wearing super heavy armor, but I can still regular roll in it. And then my main weapons are 2 double swords, specifically the ones that I can hit the left button and swipe with both. I believe they're just curved swords. And then my secondary is a 100% physical protection shield with a great sword that I've been swapping between one that does magic, one that does bleed. I have one that does frost. I go in, and if I can't beat something with my dual swords, I usually swap to my greatsword, and I can swap out my greatsword for whatever I need it to be. I have enough weapons, and I've gotten enough souls, I'm able to keep up with that, and I go in manually into my menu and swap that out for whichever one I end up needing. Most of the time, I run just a specific bleed build. One of my swords is just straight dex damage with ridiculous scaling. The other one is dex with, I think, the highest bleed for a single-handed sword in the game. It honestly looks like a giant curved bread knife, and it's pretty cool. And then, if I have to, I swap to my greatsword for riposte and everything, just to get that extra bit of bleed damage in there and everything. I'm enjoying the bleed build and everything. I mean, it's gotten me this far. I can't wait to diversify and everything, because I went into the Millennia fight, summoned 2 NPC, and just the variation on builds and how crazy a lot of them are. Oh, it's just insane. So anyway, that's all of our builds. Let's talk about some of the locale, some of the flora and fauna, some of the locations in this game.
We talking dogs?
Unfortunately.
There's a very big dog in Thernia, the Lakes, in a church, and he's a very lovely dog. very big boy with the fancy hat. You
I
haven't
don't
met
know who
Turtle
you're
Pope?
Oh. That's a
Everything is
turtle.
dogs. If I am to understand from all of the signs that people
So
are placing on
Brady,
the ground,
what was
everything
your
is a dog.
Brady? Let's go into locations. What do you like about?
My favorite location experience was the first time I went to Caelid. It was not on purpose. I was in Limgrave looting a treasure chest. I opened it up, got transported to a mine somewhere. I did not know where it was. I just knew I was in a mine. I died several times in the mine, and it kept respawning me back at the beginning of the mine, so I couldn't go back to Limgrave. I had to slowly fight my way out. It took an hour and a half because I was super underleveled. There were crystal zombies, I think, and these cockroach people that would shoot spines out of their chest. And
Yeah, those are called kindreds of rot. Anywhere that a place with scarlet rot happens, they're there.
they were there. They were kicking my butt. After a couple of hours, I made it out of the mine, expecting to see, oh, let's go back to Limgrave and get out and go back to the starter level. I walk out and the screen is red. There is a marshland in front of me with, instead of water, it looks almost like blood. There are ruins all around. There are skeletons walking right in front of me. The experience of going through all that trouble and difficulty and slog of getting through the mine just to walk out and see, oh, you're just getting started. You still got to run all the way back to Limgrave from this hellhole, was not a good experience, but it was a very memorable experience and probably one of my favorite experiences, location-wise.
So would you say you like or hate Caelid then?
Yes.
All right. Is that your favorite area, or do you actually have you? Yeah, you've only been to Limgrave and.
Yeah, Caelid is my favorite area because I like it in theory. I don't like being there. I hate being there, but theoretically, I like the look of Caelid. I like the vibe of Caelid.
All right. I'm just going to point out to those of you who can't see, we have a doc that we list a couple bullet points and stuff that we go over here. The very first bullet point that Walker put on this entire doc is Caelid sucks ass. So
Caelid is South Beach, Florida at the worst time of year. It's a god-awful experience. It's hell. There's crows that shouldn't be alive. There's T-Rex dogs that hate you and will one-shot you. Granted, everything one-shots me. It is a miserable place to be. I am currently right in the middle of it, going towards a very large castle with a pot friend of mine, but we'll get to that later. If we're talking locations, I think my favorite experience was stumbling upon the Siofa River Well. It was just this small building, I believe it's in the middle of the Whispering Woods, and you kind of pull off into it and think, oh, it's going to be a small little dungeon. I go in, I step on a plate, and an elevator starts going down. I'm like, okay, magic elevators, I'm okay with this. It keeps going and keeps going until you start seeing stars. It is a gorgeous area where I'm assuming it's underground and the sky is lit up with probably the glintstone or whatever magic crystals in the ceiling, but it just looks like stars. There's this nice galaxy aura to the whole place. And there's minotaurs that will shoot you from 40 miles away and destroy you. And it's awful. You have these arrows sticking out of your body that are 3 times the length of your entire character, and you're just walking around with them. A fantastic area. I love the Siofa River area.
did you end up figuring out the boss there and end up fighting him?
Yes, I did. I've taken on 2 bosses in the area. I think there's more to it. From my understanding, I've done a little bit of Ronnie's quest, so I've met Blade there, and he's mentioned that there's the Nokron Eternal City nearby. I think it connects somehow. I haven't been up there yet. I did spend some time going around. I lit all the things and found my way over to that boss, and then I fought this weird dragon soldier up on top that I found through a transporter thing. That area is wild. So I did fight Blue Rudolph.
Yeah, so the Ancestor Spirit was a nice, relaxing boss. It's almost like...
It really was.
Yeah, it's almost like a dance whenever you're fighting that one. It doesn't feel like you're aggressively running at something. It's more like you're watching it try and step on you and hunt you down to force you out of its home. And, it kind of feels bad whenever you're killing it, honestly. So you did that. You found the Dragonkin soldier.
Yes.
How was he?
Miserable boss fight, honestly. That was a situation where I definitely did not rely on my sword. I stayed as far away as I could on Torrent, fired about 3 rounds of rocks at this thing's face, and as soon as it started charging me, I ran the other direction. And it was that back and forth for a while. It was miserable.
So imagine finding one of those in an entire lake of rot. And by rot, I mean scarlet rot.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I met a dragon that deals scarlet rot damage, and he was not pleasant.
Oh, I loved that fight. That fight, like, if there's one thing this game has taught me, it's how to fight dragons.
If there's one thing that this game has taught me, it's how to run the fuck away from dragons.
I have a really good method for dealing with dragons. I call my horse, and then I don't stop running until I'm all the way across.
I'm using the Brady method. I like this.
Yeah. Real effective. Haven't lost to a dragon yet.
Dragons are mean. I have lost to many a dragon.
So, one of my favorite areas of the entire thing is the Academy of Rey Lucaria. Because you go into this, you go through this teleporting door, and you look up, and you see the surrounding, like, metal cages and everything, these blue candled firelit stuff. The entire sky is a nice deep shade of blue. It's not nighttime. It's like a purplish bluish shade on purpose and everything. And you feel like you're at Hogwarts. It is such a good area. And I really love how FromSoft can take what seems like a very small area and have you weaving in and out of it so much that it makes it to be like 5 times what you think it is. And they do that for their dungeons. They do that for their legacy dungeons. They've mastered that art. And the entire time you're weaving through the Academy of Rey Lucaria, you're just getting closer and closer to the grand library that's at the top of this formation of towers and everything. There are a couple side paths you can go where you're running on the rooftops. There's a couple places you go where you're weaving in and out of classrooms. There's a giant wheel in the middle of it that has platforms that you can jump on as it goes up and down. And there's blue crystals everywhere. It's an extremely beautiful place. One of my favorites. Now we're going to talk about the worst place. Caelid's level 1. The Lake of Rot is level 2. Ifil, Brace of the Haligtree, and just approaching the Haligtree is level 3. If you don't have the Cure to Scarlet Rot on speed dial, just don't go. This place is miserable. It has the worst variations of enemies. The regular soldiers are meh and everything. Once you get to any of there are Erdtree avatars, actual mini bosses you have fought in this game, that just patrol. There's like 3 or 4 of them in this entire area. Only they're Scarlet Rot versions of it. Then you have the Revenants. I don't know if either of you have fought a Revenant yet.
Don't think so. That sounds awful.
They're the things that spawn out of these, what look like holy circles out of the ground. They look like they're grafted scions, only they don't have weapons. They just have their hands. They spit poison, and then they rear up for a hit, and then lunge at you 50 yards, and unleash a fury of blows that probably equates to a good 18 or 19 hits before it actually gets done swinging at you for that attack. Not to mention, they're fast. Anytime I see one of these things, they're weak to healing, by the way. If you heal yourself, they take damage from healing. So that's one thing you can do to stop them. However, this is me. I ain't a Healy boy. I ain't a Faith boy. I'm a Dex boy. So I run, and they catch me. And I chug Estus, and then I run. And then they catch me. And then I chug Estus, and then I run. And I pray that's their aggro range, but he teleported. Okay, we're good. Oh shit, it was right behind me. He catches me. And I chug Estus, and I run. And it's just a constant cycle. I hate the Revenants so much. And then to top it all off, then you get to what is probably a really good fight. But by the end of this area, I'm so annoyed with it. This is where you fight Millennia, who has never lost a fight in her life. And I can see why.
I've seen a lot of lovely clips from people entering that fight woefully unprepared. And it is a marvelous time being on the outside of that.
Walker, what's an area you disliked other than Caelid?
So, let's roll back a little bit to how much I love the Siofra River area. Gorgeous area. What was the one thing I hated? The Minotaurs. Guess what's an area you kind of need to pass through to get up close to the I believe it's the plateau is the next area up north. There's an area called I believe it's the Twisted Labyrinth or something along those lines, where there are a bunch of these Minotaur dudes stationed with these bows that can one-shot you and shoot you like crazy. Miserable experience. I had to run and loop through these things, getting two-shot very, very easily, and have to constantly ration out my healing flasks. It was not a good time. It's everything I despised about the Siofra area without the lovely aesthetic to absolutely carry it. So it's just misery. It's not too far away from where you find Turtle Pope too, so I thought it was going to be a lovely area. No, I take 3 steps out of Turtle Pope's church and just get demolished, and it is miserable.
What about any memorable dungeons?
I really like Raya Lucaria. I haven't done a whole lot of dungeons yet.
Yeah, that's a legacy dungeons. I meant like the smaller dungeons with the mini bosses in it.
I think for the most memorable dungeon I've been in so far has been, I think, the first one I went into. I messaged, and we have a little group chat, when I had my first Souls-like experience and was going into this dungeon. When you first spawn in, it's on like the left side, just past where your first site of grace is at, inside that church. I had not experienced a Souls game up until this point. I went in, entered this lovely dungeon, got my site of grace point, walked 3 feet, and a stone gremlin motherfucker stabs me twice and kills me before I can even register what was going on. I have run that dungeon more than I think any other dungeon I have been in, including the legacy dungeons. I had to run that dungeon so many times and learn where every single one of these stinking wall gremlins spawn, because they will kill me very, very quickly unless I can snipe them first. Any dungeon with these stone gremlins in it is misery, especially if you are unprepared like I was. Getting to the end, I thought it was over. No. There is Stone Cat sitting there at the end, ready to stab you repeatedly. This was the first boss I fought in the game at all. I died so many times. I messaged in the chat, I think, saying, I won, but I both feel good and do not feel good about it. I felt so much joy from defeating this thing because I was happy it was finally over. I felt like a bitch constantly running away the entire time, getting to the other side of the room, spamming 2 shots, and then running the entire perimeter of the room until there's enough distance between us where I can fire another 2 shots before running again. Fuck me, man. It was not great.
Those are just stone gargoyles, and I'm gonna go back to builds just really quick. My co-op character that I'm playing with my friend Liam. Any enemy that I kill that happens to drop their head, and it looks like the actual head of the enemy, not just like a helmet or anything, I instantly put it on. So I ran with the cat gargoyle hat for longer than I probably should have. Then I moved on to the octopus head, and now I have the head of Blade.
No, not Blade.
Oh, I didn't kill him, but the head's you can find his that. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't killed him yet.
Blade, no.
He'll show up later in my questline.
So cool.
Brady, dungeon real quick.
My most memorable dungeon was also probably my first one. I don't even know if this counts as like an actual dungeon. It was one of the places you can go in Limgrave, directly north of that church. It's just a cave in the side of a cliff. I remember it because I walked in, saw the site of grace, saw the statue, and then I walked 3 steps in the dungeon and it was pitch black and I could not see anything. I did not know how to equip a torch, so I fought that dungeon blind.
Oh, no.
It was miserable. It was painful. Very similar to Walker, I had to memorize where all the enemies were. Thankfully, I had a shield, so I could just walk in with my shield up and my halberd out, spamming stab. That eventually got me through it, and then I got to the first mini-boss I'd ever fought, and it was easier than getting through the pitch blackness, because I could finally see and react to a boss. That one's probably the easiest boss in the game, because it's very standard, not a difficult
The
enemy.
Beastman of Fire Missoula, correct?
Yes, that's the one. He's probably the easiest one, but it did feel good to beat him.
I don't think I found this cave.
It's so, like you said, if you go north of the first church, along that cave wall, there's actually 2 dungeons. One of them's just a flat-out cave. The other one's tucked inside a little nook behind a fallen pillar.
Oh, that's the one I found with the stone dude. I didn't find this other cave. I'm surprised. You did it in the dark, though. Good job. Holy cow, I would have probably given up and not done it.
So I learned that if you die and leave your runes on the ground, they glow and they emit light. So I fought by the glowing light of my own death.
That's kind of badass as fuck, though.
It's kind of cool.
That's kind of awesome.
If only you weren't so bad at the game. If only we didn't know you were bad at the game.
Yeah.
If we were just now coming in, then I'd be like, damn, this guy's metal as fuck, but we kind of know how you are.
I've given away the game. You know I'm bad.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to go, real quickly, I'm going to go over my most memorable dungeon, which happens to be, the boss ends up being my most hated enemy in this game. You go into this dungeon, and you're like, oh, a treasure chest. You walk up to it, and instantly the ground beneath you falls. And you're in this pitch-black room full of rats. First of all, I also hate rats as an enemy. They're awful.
I will second that. Rats are horrific.
You finally kill them, and you're like, alright, cool. Now what? And you follow the rest of this path and everything. You get down, and you walk into this room, and you can already tell just by the look of it, you're like, oh, this is the boss room. I wonder what I'm fighting. You turn left, and there's a sleeping bear that's the size of 12 of you at least. Enter the Rune Bear. If there's one thing I hate in FromSoft games, it's beast enemies that have full body hitboxes for most of their moves. What do you know? What does the Rune Bear have? Full body hitboxes for most of its moves. So you go and you try and dodge this thing, and it just doesn't work. It's resistant to most physical damage by a solid margin. I think it's like 40%. It reduces 40% of your physical damage. So you just have to keep going at it. I think the only weakness is that they're weak to sleep, and it's kind of hinted by having a Trina Lily in that room be the reward. And you only can surmise that because Trina Lily is one of the is the important component in making sleep grease, which you grease your weapon up with to put things to sleep. That's the only way I was able to think of what they're weak to. So the dungeon, it didn't take me that long, but it introduced me to the Rune Bear. The Rune Bear persists throughout the game, and for some reason, they scale with the game. I've fought Rune Bears that could kill the very gods of this game and lost to them, and I've probably raged to Rune Bears more than any other creature in this game, to the point I don't fight them anymore. I will be like, all right, Torrent, don't die on me now. And I'll hop on Torrent, and I'll run in there, grab what other item they're fucking guarding, and try and get the fuck out while screaming, fuck, 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 the entire time. I hate Rune Bears.
That reminds me of my strategy for dealing with Rune Bears, the one Rune Bear I've seen in Mistwood. There's one sleeping over a dungeon stairs where you go down the stairs into the dungeon. I spent probably half an hour fighting one Rune Bear where I would hide on the stairs where he couldn't reach me because his hitbox was too big, wait for him to finish an attack animation, ran up, stabbed him once, and ran back down the stairs to where he couldn't hit me. And I just took advantage of the environment, and that's the only way I won.
Did either of y'all run into Patches?
I ran into Patches.
Did you get teleported by his chest?
No, I did not take his chest.
Okay, yeah, don't take his chest.
He said it was his. He said it was for loyal customers only, and I had not been a loyal customer yet, so I was very polite and didn't open his chest. Were you an asshole and opened his chest? It belongs to him.
You don't know. Patches has been in every Dark Souls game, and he's an asshole to you in every Dark Souls game. Patches gets whatever the fuck he deserves.
Patches has been great. He's been selling me nice stuff.
Patches is great dead, and me giving the bell bearing to the twin fingers and the fucking round table hold.
Don't know what you're talking about.
So anyway, if you go into that chest, he teleports you in the Mistwoods. Right in front of you is a Rune Bear scratching a tree, and you're like, yeah, I'm not fucking with that. You turn around, oh, there's a Rune Bear sleeping right there. You look to your left, oh shit, there's another Rune Bear walking right there.
I didn't know that the giant bears were referred to as Rune Bears. I now understand your plight, because those things are god-awful, and I'm pretty sure they resist magic because I cannot do hardly any damage to them.
Let's talk about like some of the NPCs of the game. Have y'all done any real quest lines or anything? Like there are plenty of NPCs to the point that they actually, like, with the newest patch, added a bunch of quest lines for for NPCs and stuff. So like there's actually more content than was originally released in the game now for NPCs, and a lot of them have some really unique stories, and I'm wondering if y'all have experienced any of these.
I've only run into a handful of NPCs through my whole 50 hours. The most notable, I like Selene. She is the first sorceress that you can run into who will actually sell you spells, which is very, very useful as an astrologer build. I know that she has a quest line associated with her. I have not had a chance to do that yet. Similarly, I met Alexander, who is a fantastic being who was stuck in a hole originally when you first find him, and is desperately pleading for someone to give him a hand, give him a quick smack with something large to get him out of the hole, and which I did, and he was very, very grateful. I have now re-met Alexander, who is a very large pot man, and we are about to, I think, start some kind of festival for Radon, which is kind of cool. That's as far as I've gotten with a lot of the NPCs. I have started some quest lines with Ronnie. I have the naturally the hots for Ronnie, but outside of that,
Forearms and puppet, two of my fetishes right there.
whoa.
Okay.
Blue and tall were mine too.
Speaking of fetishes, the NPC that I enjoyed the most was Blythe.
He's a furry.
The NPC I enjoyed the most was Blythe. He is also one of the few NPCs that I've interacted with that wasn't trying to kill me. I think he's cool as shit because he's basically a werewolf paladin, and I don't need any other reason to like him. I did do his quest. I may have had some help from online sources figuring out how, because it's kind of obscure. You have to hear a howling and then go talk to a very specific NPC and get a finger snap emote and then go do the finger snap emote.
That ain't even the thick of it, bud. You gotta go do Ronnie shit for Blythe as well.
I haven't gotten to that point.
Would you like a quick lore thing, just a quick tidbit real quick about him?
Sure.
So the same way that Michaelith, the guy that had the death rune stolen from him, is a half brother to Marika and was her shadow, Ronnie has the same thing with Blythe. Blythe, they're not related, but Blythe is her shadow, given to her by the Two Fingers.
Interesting.
And so whenever she goes against the Two Fingers, Blythe is stuck between siding with Ronnie and having his actual reason for what he is fighting inside him to go against Ronnie, because it is what he was made to do. So
yeah, very cool. Very cool NPC. I remember doing his quest and killing the Bloodhound. Bloodhound was not a fun fight, or a very fun fight, depending on how much you like pain. I might have gone into it a little underleveled or underskilled. I kept getting eviscerated. I would get him down to a third health, and then he would get one combo off of me, and I'd be dead. But I did eventually beat him, and Blythe has pointed me towards some kind of blacksmith that I haven't gotten to yet.
To piggyback off that, I really, really enjoy the Everjail system. I think it's a very clever way of scattering bosses for you to test your ability on throughout the world. I originally tried, I think it actually was the Bloodhound originally. I kept trying repeatedly.
So his name is Darawil, by the way.
I've tried him a couple of times and just couldn't get past him. And then I was able to come back and go, oh, my skills actually have improved. I'm able to actually take this guy down. I fought a couple of people like a Crucible Knight and a couple other really interesting fights that way. It's been a lot of fun.
Crucible Knights are also awful. Great design. I hate fighting them. So the NPC I want to go into is actually Dialos. If y'all have been to the Roundtable Hold, y'all have met Dialos. I don't know if he gives you his name there yet or not, but he's the guy that's looking for...
Is he sexy black hair boy?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. He is the one that's looking for his childhood friend, Lanya. So Dialos finally finds Lanya, and she is dead in Learning of the Lakes. And she died from tarnished hands. And so you meet with Dialos again, and he says he received an invitation from the faction that actually ended up killing Lanya. And so he's like, I'm going to accept this invitation and then go kill these people pretty much. So you end up not seeing him for a while. Or actually, no, I think he doesn't actually move from the Round Table Hold. He's still there. He just doesn't have any additional dialogue for you or anything till way later. Till you get to the Volcano Manor, which is pretty late in the game. Once you get to the Volcano Manor, you are asked to join this family. This family is a group of Tarnish that hunt other Tarnish. They're called Recusants, and they are a faction that are they try to become champions. You get here, and Dialos is kind of like confused because he's agreed to join them. They were able to talk him into it, saying that it is only right that she die in combat if she was not able to stop it, and like only champions can take what is meant for them. And so he's like really confused, so he decides to join, and he's full-hearted gonna become a champion. You get a little later into the Volcano Manor quest line to where Dialos ends up failing a couple of his chance to become a champion, and it gets to the point to where you have to go and kill Dialos's sibling for one. It's either sibling or cousin for one of your assassination contracts for the Volcano Manor. And once you do, Dialos is gone. He's no longer there. And you eventually find him in Jarburg. And Jarburg is a town full of pot people. And they're looking for a new potentate, I believe is what they say it is. Which I have no clue like what that's supposed to mean. I'm thinking it might be like a potter or something, because they say something about how you the Tarnish can't be the potentate because your hands are too rough and everything, but Dialos's are smooth and everything, and so he's like a good potentate. You find him there, and he's healing a small jar with a couple broken pieces on it and everything, and he's so confused, and he ends up not wanting to let anyone demand him on what to do and everything, and he said he's finally breaking away from not only his house but also Volcano Manor. He wants to become his own person and actually go out and do what he wants to do and everything, and do something with meaning. And so you go and you go off, do a couple missions, you keep returning to Jarburg, and he is just slowly befriending these jars and everything, and it gets to the point where you come back and the village is just completely slaughtered. There's a bunch of people dead, or most of the pots dead. A couple of the buildings look ramshacked, and on the ground is Dialos sitting there. A couple of the pots come over, one of which talks to you and is like, Dialos, he defended us from the poacher. And you go up to Dialos, and in his last breath he asks you, did he do anything with meaning? Did he save the pots? And you can answer yes, or you can answer no. There are still some alive, so like you have reason to say either which one. And that will determine like how he feels whenever he dies. And when he finally dies, I said that yes, he actually did something that meant something. And he has this like, in his dying words, he has this moment of relief, and like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders, like he's finally been his own person. And that is so rare to find in a Dark Souls game. Most Dark Souls games, it's this guy following this person, it's this guy going for revenge and everything. It's never a person wanting to just live his life just to live his life. And it was so nice to have that for once. So I really enjoyed Dialos and his questline.
Okay, so let's talk about what is arguably the most important part of a Souls-like game, the bosses.
Boss fights are hard as a mage. There's not a lot of room to move around.
Margit, let's talk about Margit.
Let's talk about Margit. Margit sucks ass. Continue.
That's most of what I have to say. I spent more time fighting Margit than I spent doing pretty much anything else in Elden Ring. I summoned Rodrigue the Sorcerer to help. I used my own spirit summons to help. They were not much help. They just died immediately. Like, I wouldn't even get a quarter of his health gone before they were dead and useless. And I did not have enough points to summon more than once.
So
all that to
Margit
say,
is the toughest,
it took me a very long time.
Is the toughest intro boss to a FromSoft game ever, and I think it's because of the open world aspect. They wanted to hit you hard at the beginning to be like, hey, we know this boss is super hard, so either you brick wall it and play it like a Dark Souls game, and you just keep hitting at it until you get it, or you go to this new aspect we've shown you, and you go and explore everything.
I did really enjoy that, actually. I think it was a very clever play on FromSoft's part to make it so difficult. Because you're right, it absolutely encourages you to go and check out the rest of the world, because you can explore so much. I found myself, there's a back route you can go around Stormveil Castle, so you don't actually need to go through the dungeon at all. I found myself up in the Lake District without even passing through the castle at all. I managed to sneak all the way by it, and I explored a decent chunk. I got my ass handed to me, but I explored a decent chunk up until, like, near the gates of Raya Lucaria before I went back and finally challenged Margit again. But, oh man, that boss fight is rough. It really threw me off of it for a while.
Just one more quick thing about the open world aspect. If you do find Patches before you fight Margit, Patches actually sells a thing called Margit Shackle. You use it and it stuns him, and you can use it twice for battle. And I haven't used it myself, so I don't know exactly the full extent of the stun, but you can use this item to make it easier to kill Margit. So that is another reason it's like, hey, go explore. You might find something that could help you. Wink.
It is hidden behind a dragon, though, I will say.
I will say I don't think that counts as an incentive to explore. Something that specific and difficult to find is more just like an Easter egg if you do happen to go that way. I think the grinding and getting more experience and exploring the rest of the open world to level up, absolutely, that's a very neat thing. I think that's a hilarious Easter egg that they sell Margit chains.
All right, so the next one is Godric. He was the first actual Great Rune boss.
Godric was cool. I liked Godric. I beat
Very
him
cool fight.
significantly quicker than Margit.
I don't think I first tried him. I think I third tried Godric. And I have to tell you, I got giddy whenever he entered his second phase and grafted himself with the dragon. Oh my god.
That was so cool.
That
Such
was
a
a
great
idea.
badass
So cool.
moment.
Insta-kill me the first time I got to that point. I was very low health, and then he just and burnt me to death, but very cool.
So after that, it's recommended you go Raya Lucaria, where I think you'll fight the Red Wolf of Radagon.
Funny story with that. Brady, have you gotten up to Raya Lucaria at all yet?
I have not gotten to Raya Lucaria.
Okay.
I've seen it, but I haven't gotten to
Okay,
it.
No
then
problem.
pause on Raya Lucaria. You did go to the Weeping Peninsula then, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, what about the Leonin Misbegotten? Did you fight him?
The one in the castle way down south.
Castle Morn?
Yes, the guy with the blood sword.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
what'd y'all think of him?
He was a chump. He was nothing, honestly.
He was a chump? I would not say he was a chump. I barely survived that fight.
Well, remember, you were a sorcerer. Brady
That's
over there
true.
had Halberd, and he staggers easy. with
Yeah,
heavy
I
weapons.
came into that fight with half health and one health potion left. I left without using that health potion.
Really?
Because once you hit him once with a halberd, you won the fight. You just have to keep hitting quick attack, and he dies and staggers without doing anything to you.
Interesting.
He
Yeah,
has
stagger
very
is
weak
OP.
Poise. He has very weak poise, and I fought him a lot different way because I was using the dual swords. So mine was a lot more. My swords aren't enough to stagger on the first hit. They usually take like 2, but he's quick enough where I can't get 2 in all the time. So it was a lot of me like dodging, and I actually died on him a fair bit, and I had to learn that fight. It was a lot of fun. I think it was one of my favorites. There's a variation of him later in the game that is faster and has a holy sword, and that one's bullshit. That one's bullshit, and I barely beat it.
Some people on the internet will give me shit about this. I use summons quite frequently, especially during boss fights. Specifically, I really, really like the, I think they're called the Lone Wolves, the triple wolves, because it gives me just enough fodder to be able to summon them and run to the other side of the arena so I can start prepping my actual battle plan. Because otherwise, I'm just charged and killed immediately. So I like to drop my wolves and just book it. This was the first fight I discovered how useful the wolves actually were. But prior to that, I had been told that, go with the jellyfish. The jellyfish is incredible it can soak up so much damage. The jellyfish does not work. The jellyfish takes a couple hits while I'm just like smacking the guy from a distance, and then does not quite re-aggro the boss fast enough to take the tension away from me. That's what I've discovered in my use of it. The wolves typically provide enough damage output for me to get away, pull the aggro towards me, and then the wolves will hit him again and pull the aggro back towards them. And then we can kind of like trade back and forth a little bit.
I found that the jellyfish was a lot better for melee users.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say, is that as someone I can afford to have a little bit of attention on me every once in a while. The jellyfish is great because he'll aggro a few times and I get some free hits, and then I'll do a couple of dodges and blocks while the jellyfish gets a few hits, and we just kind of trade back and forth. And he lasts quite a while doing that.
And I may be wrong in this, but I think if you upgrade him, like, he actually like starts poisoning.
Oh, interesting.
I think that's right.
But I may be wrong with that. I stopped using the jellyfish and the wolves pretty early on because I found the summon for the ancestors, the Sophia River Valley.
I just got that, and I have started using it.
They use the big ass bow from a distance.
Yes, they do.
And if they get close, then he pulls out his fucking axe and starts beating his ass, and I'm just like, that's my guy. And then late game, I ended up moving to a named one called Latenna that is actually a quest to take her somewhere and everything. And she's really cool because she's the only summon that doesn't move whenever you summon her, unless there's a wolf. If there's a wolf in it, she will shoot an arrow or something that like mind controls the wolf or something. The wolf will pick her up, and then she starts riding the wolf while being an archer.
No fuck, dude. That's awesome.
Other than that, she will not move from the spot you summon her. But she still has like a decent range and shoots burst arrows. So
Gotcha.
Wild.
So anyway, so that was Castle Morn. I think we're done with main bosses for you then, Brady. Unless, have you fought any in Caelid?
No main bosses.
Okay, then I think we're done with you, Brady. We're gonna move on to Rhea Lucaria and Red Wolf of Radagon.
So, I want to talk real quick about Red Wolf of Radagon. I had a very interesting moment with Red Wolf of Radagon. I first tried the Red Wolf. I was very proud of myself for first trying the Red Wolf. The Red Wolf caught me with a glowstone blade right as I killed it. So I killed it and I died at the same time. Okay, that's fine. We take those. That is a victory against the Red Wolf. The Red Wolf will no longer spawn in the main debate parlor. Great. I'm going to go back and grab my boss runes real quick. I run up the stairs. The big pot turns around, smacks me, and kills me, and I do not get my boss runes. I'm still pissed off to this day that I was able to first try this boss perfectly fine, got clipped at the very end, and then got bodied as I was very boldly running back into the room. Emma is still laughing at me about this dumb mistake that I made. Man, it was good fight, great fight. It was a fun fight against the doggo. Magic to be post-death, I am very upset.
The Red Wolf of Radagon is one of the better, but probably one of the best boss fights that they did. Just in the way that he moves and he attacks is very, I don't want to say telegraphed, but you can kind of infer what he's going to do the entire fight. And it's a really good check if you haven't been dodging yet in the game for your boss fights, because you have to dodge the magic. Because if you get hit by the magic that he casts, he frequently charges in as the magic bolts shoot at you. So it's a good learning point to, hey, dodge this so you don't get hit by the charge and just get instantly burst to zero. Then we move on to Renala.
Renala was interesting. I had a lot of fun doing that boss because there's a little puzzle aspect to it at the first phase, which I did not realize was only the first phase. I should have. Every other main boss so far has had multiple phases, but the first phase for Renala requires you looking around, hunting down some additional scholars in the room that are singing some sort of song. You kill 3 of those scholars, it drops this protective shield that's around her, and she's open for attacks. She doesn't really fight back much aside to shoot a couple lasers at you at a couple points while you are hunting down the singing acolytes. Got killed a couple of times during this initial phase. I was like, oh, cool, okay, I'm starting to figure out the pattern now. Knock out the acolytes, I finally get her, I'm like, yes! And a cutscene starts playing, I'm like, dope! Brady, you get transported to the moon. Not to the moon, you get transported to a plane where there's only the moon, like, to light the area, and it's just a huge arena of water, and now Renala has woken up and is going to blast you with one of the strongest spells in the game. And if you do not dodge it, you are one-shot by this.
But my god, if it's not gorgeous.
It is a fantastic boss fight. If you are at all interested in some of the aesthetics of the game, I would recommend at least getting to and just checking out this boss fight arena. If it's not you don't want to play it, go look up a gameplay of it, because it's really, really cool.
She full on goes all out here using spells. She makes her staff do these twirls that go out and hit you. And then she starts pulling out summons as well. She pulls out all the stops and does what you do, only better. She summons 4 wolves that can hit you. She summons a bloodhound knight that can hit you. She summons a troll that can hit you. And this bitch dares to summon a full-on dragon.
Yeah, when she starts summoning, just rush this girl, because otherwise you are going to get bodied by whatever summon she decides to throw out.
Though these summons only last for a while, the balls that this woman has to summon a full-on other great boss on you just shows what you're actually dealing with here if you want to ascend to Elden Lord.
And that is the last major boss that I have fought so far. I think I'm gonna go and battle General Radahn soon. I think he's a major boss.
Yeah.
Past that,
I'm gonna cover just a couple of the Great Rune bosses that I fought. So Radahn, huge open arena. You get to summon multiple combatants to help you, including Alexander the Jar, Blade the Half-Wolf, 3 NPCs you've never even heard of, as well as once they die, their signs will appear again and you can resummon them and everything. Once you've gone through 3 rotations of them, it pops up 3 different summons, including the festival holder, like the guy running the festival, as one of the people you can summon. That's just not even talking about the fight. As soon as you get into the fight, be ready to dodge, because he's shooting gravity arrows at you that will probably kill you, Walker, because of your health. And Brady, what's your vigor at? Probably like 30?
High 30s.
Alright, cool. You're gonna be down to less than a quarter health.
Oh, fun.
Whenever you get hit by one of these. And he keeps firing these until someone gets to him. One of the NPCs you summon, or you yourself. And so you have to run at him. After someone gets close, he puts away his bow. And he pulls out his double gravity swords. And he's a big boy. And he's sitting here swinging, doing all these combos. You get him down to half health, and that's just first phase. Then he disappears. He jumps into the air with gravity magic. He disappears for about 10 seconds. You're looking around like, what the fuck's happening? You look in the sky and you see a comet coming down on you. Oh, that's Radagon. He's coming in full comet-like and bulldozes the arena. Kills most of the NPCs in one shot, probably. Kills you in one shot. And his gravity attacks are stronger. He uses them more. He pulls out rocks to throw at you. He does this great slam that pulls you in if you get sucked by gravity and then combos you and everything. He's a force to be reckoned with. There is a reason why he was the strongest. But man, if that wasn't like a super fun boss fight. After that, who's the other Great Rune? I guess Ricard. Ricard is the serpent. There's actually a weapon to your left as soon as you get in, and it's a weapon that deals significantly more damage to great serpents, which is, since Ricard was eaten by the great serpent, that's what he is now. So you can either kill him with the basic weapon that has these arts where it's a lance, but it summons this blade of air around it if you're fighting a great serpent that gives you significantly more range, so you can hit this giant boss that's sitting in a pool of lava at you. Or if you die, you can go upgrade the weapon, and then you really shit on Ricard. Because the first time you go, you get the weapon, you put it on so that you do actual damage, and then you die, you're like, alright, fuck this, I'm gonna go upgrade the weapon, and then you half health him with like 2 swipes. Yeah, this weapon was literally meant for Ricard. He's a fun boss fight. He hits second phase around half health as well, and then rains down literal Armageddon on you. Only Armageddon's not comets and meteors, they're skulls that seek you, and they home in on you. And the entire screen is fucking covered, and you have to figure out what you're dodging at what point, what's okay to take, heal. My god, he was a rough one. You fight a Phantom of Godfrey in Lindell Capital, and he is honestly just an oversized heavy weapon user. If you fought any heavy weapon user, you'll be fine going against him. Until second phase, then he gets a couple of AoE attacks that extend in front of him. He can do like a stomp, kind of like the Crucible Knights, only it's like bigger. I'm really good at fighting dragons now. There's several dragons that you fight throughout this entire game. I believe there's 8 named, maybe 9. I learned about another one last night. That isn't a quest line I didn't do this playthrough, so I'll have to go to see how he is to fight Fortisax. They all always have weird names. I fought Millennia. We've already talked a little bit about that. There's a reason she's the hardest boss FromSoft's ever made. And it's not just because of what she does yet, but it's also because by the time you get there, you're already tilted. That's another effect. She has this one attack that if you know it's coming, you can start running away from her, but she does 3 volleys of slashes, and it doesn't matter if you're all the way across the arena. In the second volley, she will be right in front of you doing the volley of attacks. And that's first phase. Second phase, she becomes the goddess of rot and does a diving attack that does damage in an AoE, and then blooms this giant scarlet rot flower that ticks damage on you as well as giving you scarlet rot almost instantly. And you have to run away from that. All of her attacks have scarlet rot on them now. She still does the triple flurry of blows attack, although I think it does less damage, just applies the scarlet rot. It felt like, at least. She's a rough one. And I'm trying to think I feel like there's one more great rune I got that... Oh, Morgott. Morgott's just Margit, except he's faster. Any of his magic attacks cover a good portion of the arena. However, I think this was my favorite boss fight because one of the summons you can use for this boss fight is Melina, the person leading you on this journey, and I thought that was really cool. And she's a badass. I will say, she's quite the badass, and she will go and get his attention and kick his ass for you. Not all the way, you'll still have to do some of the work, but she's a badass.
When you say that Margit is Margot, is it just they have very similar attack patterns, or like it's the same character, just...
Morgott disguises himself as Margit.
Gotcha.
You should probably think of a better pseudonym.
Yeah, that's so easily...
you got Margit, you got Morgott, you got Mog, you got Mogwin, you got...
You know what, in this world, yeah, absolutely, when every character
You got Millennia, you got Michaela, you got Millicent. Shall I go on?
No, you made your point.
And then the next boss I'm fighting is Mogwin, the Lord of Blood. And then after that, I believe I'm done with all of the Great Rune holders. I'm pretty sure the last, couple hours of the game are a boss rush, almost. Or at least that's what it's looked like. We'll see whenever I get there.
Awesome.
Also, Blackblade Kindred does a lot of damage in front of the Bestial Sanctum. Be warned.
Oh, yes, I'm aware. I'm very aware. I've started a side quest that has to do with that. I think D sends me there. Luckily, there's a transport, a transport wall of some kind that will take you directly to the Bestial Sanctum. I was curious when I stepped outside and saw a giant black gargoyle that completely one-shot me. Got scared, ran past that to the bridge where there's a dragon that'll one-shot me. Caelid is a miserable place.
That is the final gauntlet of Caelid. First of all, you fight a land full of dragons. There's probably a good 11 to 15 dragons there, including one super massive dragon that's just sitting there lying on the ground, but he does a giant scream that makes the dragons do more damage, though they lose half their health. And every time you kill a dragon, it does 17,000 damage to the big guy, and you see, oh, this guy probably has over 100,000 health. And he can still do damage if you're by his mouth, but he just lays there the entire time. So you go from that guy into a putrid Erdtree avatar, one that does Scarlet Rot, into a Knight's Cavalry, into the Dragon on the Bridge, into Blackblade Kindred. It's a gauntlet.
Oh boy, I'm glad I found the instant transport there.
I'm pretty sure I'm missing a boss here or there, but go experience for yourself.
That's all the big ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of bosses in this game, a lot of them with really cool mechanics. Go find them. Beat them, have fun.
Or watch a video of someone beating them.
Also valid.
Just know you've beaten a boss anytime it says great enemy failed. You've beaten a mini boss anytime it says just enemy failed. And you'll find that some of the mini bosses can be harder than some of the bosses you fought. Especially Crucible Knights. Crucible Knights are kind of brutal, so have fun with that. Just a little bit on sound design. Did y'all have anything really?
Not particularly. The sound fits the game. It creates a really good ambiance.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, I'm the type of person who will put on other kinds of music or podcasts or something to listen to while I'm playing games. I have not done that with this game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in itself should speak some volumes. I don't know if it's too much, but it has kept my attention.
A couple of the boss fights tracks have stood out to me myself. Renala's second phase is really good. Renala's first phase is actually really good too, because it's an audio cue that you can hear which one's doing the singing and producing the shield. So that's kind of nice. Any dragon fight is super fun. I think they play the same track for every single one, it feels like. I think if I had to pick a favorite, it would probably be, and I haven't gotten to him yet, but Godfrey the second time, whenever he turns into whatever his original name was. I can't remember what it is. I haven't gotten to it, but I've watched people do that fight, and it's just this full-on, he's like a Street Fighter character during that phase. And it's one of those tracks that, whenever it comes on, it's like every hit reverberates in the track, and it's really cool. I recommend that one. You got anything for sound design, Brady?
I didn't notice anything specific. I am like Walker. I tend to have other things going on in the background for noise when I'm playing video games.
But then you're not going to hear a shiny.
That may be why I miss a lot of shinies in Pokemon. It's because I'm not listening. But I cannot... I need something else to distract my brain so I can focus.
All right. Brady, let's start with you then. What are your final thoughts for the game?
Final thoughts on the game? I've said this before and I'll say it again. I am not talented enough to fully express and experience this game. I think it is a masterfully designed game with a lot of fun mechanics and an interesting world. And Elden Ring kind of revolutionized the whole Souls-like genre, bringing in open world mechanics to the standard throw your face against a brick wall until you beat the boss formula. Allows for a lot more diverse playstyle and diverse play experience that I think widens the audience appeal for Elden Ring as opposed to just normal Souls players. I think it brings in a lot of people that, like Walker, for example, probably wouldn't play a normal Souls game, but this, where he can go and grind and get better at the game without having to face the monogamy of fighting one boss over and over and over again, I think it allows for a wider audience. I think it's a fantastic game. I'd say, from what I've seen, 8.5 out of 10. I think there's a lot of great stuff in this game. I haven't played enough of it to know if it's a 10 out of 10, so I can't give it, in good conscience, a higher rating than that. Everything I've seen, 8.5 out of 10.
I guess for my final thoughts, having only seen the first 3 major areas, it's hard to create a complete picture and judgment of the game. But coming from a first-time Souls player, I've really enjoyed the overall experience, and I'm definitely going to keep playing once we wrap up this podcast. For right now, I'm going to put it at an 8.5 out of 10 as well, with the caveat that it's likely to increase the further I get into the game. I also want to say really quickly, for those of you who are thinking about playing the game and who are worried about, playing it wrong, or are scared to play it the traditional Souls way of, have big strong sword to hit enemies, that is completely valid. But any way that you play this game is going to be valid. Don't listen to people online. Play the game how you want to. It's not about the difficulty. It's about being able to overcome the challenge that's in your way. Whichever way you seem like doing that, whether it be using the broken builds, the broken weapons, using, pots for fists if you want to make it harder on yourself and go in and punch everything. If you want to use your summons or be an astrologer or be whatever kind of character you want to be in this game, that's why the character customization's there and why there's so many different ways to build out. Play the game how you want to. At the end of the day, it's your experience. You're not doing anything wrong.
Well said. I'm going to add on to that a little bit. It wouldn't be put into the game if they didn't want you to use it.
Bingo.
Great point.
Coming from a longtime Souls player and a maniac on this, yeah, there's a I'm a speedrunner, or I'm a highly skilled Souls player, I'm gonna go do this. But don't shame the people that play it their way. This game is breathtaking. I've thoroughly enjoyed every aspect of this game that I've played. There have been certain areas that have tilted me and everything, like any Souls game does that to me. Like I said, this game is up there with Sekiro. It might end up passing it for my favorite game of all time. This game is easily a 10 out of 10 for me. It'll probably be my game of the year, no shocker. We'll have to see. They got some stiff competition this year. Elden Ring is such a perfect send-off for Miyazaki, the creator of Dark Souls. And the fact that we're not going to have him making games anymore it hurts a little, because what he made right here is a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece, and a perfect send-off. And I just want to say thank you, Miyazaki.
Hey, Papa Trent.
Yeah.
What game are we playing next?
Next, we're going from one of my favorite series to another one of my favorite series, because there's a certain little explosives specialist that has just released a D&D.
We playing D&D?
A D&D inspired game. That's right. Next month, and all you that are listening right now, we're playing Tiny Tina's Wonderland. Tune in next time to hear that. So, thank you all for joining us today. It has been fantastic. Thank you all once again for tuning into the Joystick Frequency, and be sure to keep on playing on.
Have fun, y'all.
Bye.